Welcome to the unsettling narrative of Herb Mullin, the delusional serial killer. On that fateful day, Mullin entered Gianera's residence, where the unsuspecting young man was going about his daily routine. Gianera had no reason to suspect the danger that lurked outside his door. Mullin confronted Gianera, armed with a knife and driven by his delusional belief that human sacrifices would appease the Earth's energy and avert a devastating earthquake. As with his previous victims, Mullin subjected Gianera to a brutal and horrifying attack, stabbing him multiple times in a frenzied assault. As the life drained from Gianera, Mullin continued to act out his deranged fantasies, convinced that he was preventing a cataclysmic disaster. After the murder, Mullin fled the scene, leaving behind a gruesome crime scene that would send shockwaves through the community. Gianera's disappearance did not go unnoticed. Concerned friends and family reported him missing, and law enforcement launched an investigation into his whereabouts. However, with no immediate leads in a series of unsolved murders in the area, the authorities faced a challenging and perplexing case. Herb Mullin, a serial killer active in the early 1970s in Santa Cruz, California, was responsible for a string of horrifying murders driven by delusional beliefs and a compulsion to prevent an impending earthquake. One of his most chilling crimes was the murder of Gianera. It was January 25, 1973, when Herb Mullin's twisted obsession led him to the quiet home of Gianera, a 25-year-old college student living in Felton, California. Mullin, plagued by bizarre delusions that he believed could prevent a catastrophic earthquake, had already claimed several victims. It wasn't until April 1973 that Herb Mullin was finally arrested. Suspicion had fallen upon him due to his erratic behavior and bizarre statements to acquaintances. During questioning, Mullin confessed to the murder of Gianera, as well as several other killings. Mullin's arrest and subsequent confessions shed light on the disturbing mind of a man driven to commit heinous acts in the belief that he was preventing a natural disaster. His trial revealed the depths of his psychosis, and he was ultimately found guilty of multiple counts of murder. Herbert William Mullin was born on April 18, 1947 in Salinas, California. From a young age, Mullin displayed signs of mental instability. His childhood was marred by a turbulent family life, including a strained relationship with his father and the early death of his mother, which deeply affected him. As he entered adulthood, Mullin's mental state deteriorated further. He experienced paranoid delusions and believed that he could foresee natural disasters, particularly earthquakes. These delusions began to consume him, leading to erratic behavior and a disconnection from reality. In late 1972, driven by his delusional belief that human sacrifices would avert an impending earthquake, Mullin embarked on a killing spree. His first victim, 72-year-old Lawrence White, was bludgeoned to death with a baseball bat in November 1972. This brutal murder marked the beginning of a series of killings. One of Mullin's victims was Gianera, a 25-year-old college student living in Felton, California. On January 25, 1973, Mullin, armed with a knife, entered Gianera's home and subjected him to a frenzied stabbing attack. Gianera's life was tragically cut short as Mullin acted out his delusional fantasies. Mullin's erratic behavior and bizarre statements had drawn suspicion from acquaintances, eventually leading to his arrest in April 1973. During questioning, he confessed to multiple murders, revealing the extent of his psychosis. His trial highlighted his deteriorating mental state and the tragic consequences of untreated mental illness. Herb Mullin, the serial killer plagued by delusions and madness, is a disturbing figure in the annals of true crime. Are some intriguing and unsettling facts about him. Herb Mullin's crimes were driven by his delusional belief that he could prevent catastrophic earthquakes by committing human sacrifices. This bizarre and irrational obsession was at the core of his murderous spree. Prior to his arrest, Mullin exhibited erratic behavior and made bizarre statements to friends and acquaintances. His increasingly strange actions and beliefs raised concerns among those who knew him. Mullin's killing spree seemed to erupt suddenly in late 1972. His first murder, that of Lawrence White, marked the beginning of a series of violent acts that would continue for months. Mullin used a variety of weapons in his attacks, including firearms, knives, and blunt objects like baseball bats. His choice of weapons reflected the frenzied and unpredictable nature of his crimes. Mullin believed that by taking human lives, he could prevent devastating earthquakes that he believed were imminent. His delusional worldview was deeply rooted in pseudoscience and paranoia. Herb Mullin is known to have killed at least 13 people during his killing spree, although the exact number may be higher. Many of his victims were chosen seemingly at random. Mullin was arrested in April 1973 after his erratic behavior and statements aroused suspicion. During questioning, he confessed to the murders, providing investigators with chilling details of his crimes. Mullin was found guilty of multiple counts of murder and was sentenced to life in prison. His disturbing crimes and the irrationality behind them shocked both the public and the legal system. Herb Mullin's killing spree in Santa Cruz during the early 1970s occurred around the same time as the murders committed by another infamous serial killer, Edmund Kemper. Although they operated independently, their simultaneous reigns of terror added to the sense of fear in the region. Mullin's case, along with others from that era, played a role in shaping California's mental health laws. His ability to evade psychiatric evaluation and treatment despite obvious signs of severe mental illness led to reforms in the state's mental health system. In 1973, Herb Mullin was found guilty of multiple counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison. He remains incarcerated to this day, a stark reminder of the devastating impact of untreated mental illness and the terrifying actions it can drive individuals to commit. Herb Mullin's life and crimes are a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of untreated mental illness and the horrific acts that can result when delusion and madness consume an individual's mind. As we conclude our exploration into the disturbing life and crimes of Herb Mullin, may we remember the victims and reflect on the tragic consequences of untreated mental illness.